Welcome everybody to the Etihad Stadium where the sun has come out for Manchester City. It is a sky blue ambience here, beautiful evening, and Manchester City have beaten Manchester United by 3-0. It's the Gary Neville Podcast, and Gary, Manchester City have put on a display here which will presumably convince a few doubters that they're in it. They're in it.
Maybe a little bit too early for that. I think that this is not the Manchester City of 2-3 years ago when they were absolutely incredible. The levels aren't the same, even in this game where they won 3-0 and they were comfortable winners. But they have a world-class centre-forward and they have a world-class goalkeeper. And they have some good players in between. But it's just, it's not quite the Manchester City of a few years ago, but they were dominant today. They were dominant in the big moments as well, and they scored at the right times. They were deserved winners. I think a couple of the goals were really, really good, and they were far better than United.
Well, let's deal with the individuals then, because there were 2 or 3 standouts, as you've already implied. I mean, Haaland, there was a point when it was almost funny how often he was winning the ball in his own penalty area, never mind what he's actually paid to do. As an all-round performance from a centre-forward, that was a bit special, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, he's the best centre-forward in the world. I won't change my mind on that. Obviously, he sometimes doesn't get involved in the game enough. And actually said in the second half, I feel there are moments where I actually watched Sergio Aguero here for a number of years. He was a completely different striker, but he was special, different level special Aguero. And I always thought, you could score 40 goals in the Premier League. You could score 45 goals in the Premier League. You're that good. And I always feel that about Haaland as well, and he does, and he scores so many goals. But I always think, you could do so much more. You could hold it up. You could ragdoll defenders. You could chase things down. You could defend it in your own box. You could win headers. You could do everything because you're that good. You're that good a player. And today was that performance. He was absolutely brilliant. At the start of the second half, he cleared about 3 corners and second phase sort of balls that came into the box with his head, with his feet. I think he had 5 or 6 clearances, the most in the game. And he had more touches in his own defensive box at one point, more than in the United box. But then when the big moments came, he took his goals brilliantly. The first goal that he scored was special all the way through. Nico O'Reilly's little nutmegs on Agati. Then I think Phil Foden just popped it round the corner. Doku's little roll of Euro, and then a little pass down the side, which I think's amazing. That's where you sort of really want Haaland, where you're getting that little short pass. You know, it's difficult sometimes with the amount of players that play behind the ball against City to get it through in one for him. But where you can get it through to him is those little passes down the side, and he just holds offshore, and he's explosive. The explosion, off the mark of that first 3 or 4 yards and that sort of aggression in his run, and then to all of a sudden change that to the subtlety, the little dink. And they're just the best players, the ones that can use their strength, the physicality, and then also slow everything down in the heads up here and be cold and just little dink over. It was a brilliant, brilliant goal. And then the third one was a classic Haaland goal, you would say, from a few years ago, you know, whereby he's just gone through. It's a mistake from United. Shaw leaves Maguire a bit short. Maguire's pass is poor, and then he's through on goal. And you know that no one's catching him. Maguire's never going to get near him on sort of chasing back. And he's just one-on-one. And he just slots it into that far corner. It was a brilliant performance from Haaland today. And look, if City are going to win the league, I don't think they will. I don't think that's the best Manchester City team. And I don't think they're the best team in this league. I think that Arsenal and Liverpool are better currently. But what they do have, if somehow they can get Donnarumma, Diaz, Rodri and Haaland at the best, they have a world-class spine. They have a world-class spine there, and they have an unbelievable centre-forward who can destroy teams. But I just feel like still United, you know, weren't the team to do it today. But I think with Nico O'Reilly at left back, who thinks a big talent, Kusanov at right centre, at right back, there's just something not quite as dominant as you watch City for years. I've sat up here and been bored watching them. They were that good because they were just absolutely sublime in every area of the pitch. They wouldn't let you attack, not just because they had the ball most of the game, 70%, 65%. But as soon as they give it away, they'd all be all over you and win it back straight away. That's not this Manchester City team. When they give it away or when they're pressing from the front, they're not as dominant in that area of their game as they were a few years ago. And that'll mean that they will concede shots on the goal, but they've now got a shot stopper. Pep's gone and acted. He's then brought a shot stopper, and we saw the stats before the game of Donnarumma versus Ederson. I like Ederson as a goalkeeper as well. He's a brilliant goalkeeper. But I think what City have now is a brilliant goalkeeper who can maybe stop a lot of those shots that they're letting in on the goal, which will make them more competitive, obviously. But I think it's yeah, Haaland was amazing today. He's a brilliant centre forward.
Yeah, and you've covered Donnarumma there, whose save from Mbeumo, by the way, was beautiful, and we had a great view of it. The other one we were picking out in the game was obviously Phil Foden. And listen, any great player over the course of a long career is going to have dips and rises. But are you seduced into believing that he's showing us now he's ready to come again?
Well, I like Phil Foden for a start. I think he's a brilliant football player, and there are question marks over him. There are doubts. I do think that if you're a great player and a prolific title winner and you're someone who's going to play at the very top level for 15 years, you have dips. That's a guarantee. You look back through every player's in history that have been basically at one club, and they've had that moment where they thought, is it right? Should I leave? Have I lost my form? Have I lost my spark? All those things, injuries, obviously. But the important thing for Phil Foden today, for me, the most difficult part of any football match usually for a team that's going to go on and win is the first 30 minutes where there's real competitiveness, particularly in a derby. I thought he was brilliant in that part of the match. I mean, he was good all the way through the game, but in the most important part of the game where City were establishing their authority and control and obviously needed to get that first goal, I thought he was really good. So this wasn't a Phil Foden that starts the game today that's been not in the England squad, that's coming in and you're thinking to yourself, oh, he looks a bit jittery. He's played his way into the game and he's got better as it's gone on. He started the game really, really well. Thought his touch in the early parts, his positions in the sort of areas where Bruno Fernandes and Agati were trying to pick him and Reinders up were really clever. I thought some of his link play was fantastic, and I thought every bit of his game was good in that first half an hour. So I always think sometimes you can play yourself out of bad form or a difficult moment by getting sort of a win, and then later on in the game, when the game opens up, it's easy for everybody to look comfortable. But no, I thought he was really good in the early parts of this match when actually it was most difficult for City to establish themselves. So it was a good day for Phil Foden. That he's always brilliant in derbies, but what he needs now is consistency and to stay fit and perform at that level. I saw Pep Guardiola at the end of the game. I don't know if you saw her on the walk around when they were obviously doing the lap of honour. Pep Guardiola had his arm round him, and even questions have been asked about that, haven't they? About whether Pep Guardiola and Phil Foden sort of not get on with each other, but whether he's having him or not. So that was, I think, a good moment as well for City fans to see at the end of the game.
Into the last 5 minutes of the game, I asked you the sort of burning question that you probably dread around Manchester United and what they take out of it. And I was asking you to give, and you did give a constructive answer, or tried to. Yeah. So let me ask you it again now. You've had 10 minutes to think about it.
Look, I think if I start with the football side of things, I think United had moments in the games today, particularly in the first 20 minutes, where I thought they counter-attacked 3 or 4 times and they should have done better with it. And at the start of the second half, for the first few minutes, when Haaland was heading those corners out and those sort of deliveries into the box out, they looked promising, but they just weren't enough. And I said it was a bit of a nothing. There are certain things that I look at and I think the system is the system, and United fans will like it or they won't like it, but Amorim's not going to change. He's going to die in his own ditch if he's going to die in terms of losing his job. But it does mean there are challenges at times whereby to try and make, when you are chasing a game, he still plays that. So even at Grimsby away, you had Mason Mount at left wing back. Well, that's just not right. Today, I think he's always changing his back three. Always, it seems, in every single match. Euro comes off or someone else comes off, and then it doesn't seem to get any better. Changing the back three, I always think you need stability in your back line. And I say back three, changes the back five regularly as well. So the 2 wing backs and the back three. The goalkeeper is the goalkeeper. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong today, but I don't think he will be strong enough to be able to be a Manchester United goalkeeper. So that will come back and bite at some point. The midfield is a massive problem, and we've known that. United fans know that. Agati and Fernandes today, I think you mentioned it early, about an hour before the game, that Agati and Fernandes played in this fixture last year from start to finish, and United won the game. But Agati's not good enough. And Bruno's not a player who plays in a deep line midfield in a 2. Particularly, he can do, I think, if United are at home and they're playing against a team where they're dominating possession, you can maybe bring him a bit deeper and get away with it. But against any team that have got good possession, good players, and that's most teams in the Premier League, Bruno is always going to probably struggle in a midfield 2. And what happens is, it's a bit of a pattern that exists. You can cuddle Bruno with Ahmad and then Mbeumo and Sesko, and they sit in front of him and provide a shield. But what happens is when the game opens up a little bit, or the game players get a little bit more fatigued, or United go 1-0 down, they end up then sort of chasing it a little bit. The front three stay a little bit higher, and then those spaces start to appear in midfield. And then Bruno starts to get pulled around a little bit. And Bruno's United's best player by a mile. But this system either has to have him as a one of a two in midfield or one of a front three, of which he's neither of these two positions. So you've got an issue there. It's a specialist system. Wing-back's a specialist position. Mazraoui didn't have a good game today. Shaw had his poorest game of the season by a mile. He was well off it. First 2 goals he was poor for, and the third goal he didn't cover himself in glory. It was just a nothing today for me. It was just poor. I'm not jumping up and down. I'm not screaming. I think I've gone past that. But Ruben Amorim is going to come under big pressure. He's going to come under big pressure. Manchester United are 14th in the league. Now, it's only a few games in. It's 4 games in. But next week, if Manchester United lose and they go to 15th and 16th, it's 5 games in. And before you know it, you're in October, and Manchester United are in the bottom half of the table. And that's where they couldn't be, having spent £200 million, having him had a pre-season. Yeah, they might be 7th, 8th, 9th. They could be in those types of positions, but they can't be in the bottom half of the table. So there's got to be a quick turnaround pretty quickly. And the manager's idea has got to land very quickly with the players. Now, I'm not saying here today, I don't think there's any suggestion, and I'm not suggesting that, the players have got down tools on him. They've not, but they're struggling a little bit. They're struggling. They're struggling against Burnley at home. I was at the match. They're struggling against Fulham away in large parts of the game. They're struggling at Grimsby. They struggled here today. They're struggling with it. They're struggling to find rhythm, to find tempo, to find performance levels. I was really heartened by the first game of the season against Arsenal. I thought it was a really good performance. But maybe that was just they'd had a good pre-season. They built this sort of... But maybe now Cunha gets injured, Mount gets injured. The old sort of scar, the old wounds, the old scars are starting to open up. And I'm worried. I'm worried about the manager. I'm worried about what's going to happen in this next few weeks. I don't think it's a time for panic. But I've seen this before. We've seen this film, haven't we?
Quite often.
And
so what would you do, may I ask? Exactly, Chelsea next. Sorry to interrupt, but they have to carry on operating. And as we mentioned in the game, they haven't got that many games this year. They're out the League Cup. There's no Europe. So they've got from now until next weekend when they play Chelsea.
Yeah.
What would you, if it's not too facile a question, what would you be doing tomorrow and Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday? How can it be better next week?
Yeah, I wouldn't change my my preparation. I'd like to think he's going to be a serious professional, Ruben Amorim, and so are the players in terms of how they prepare. I won't change anything in that respect. But they've got to come out of the blocks next Saturday night against Chelsea, 5:30 kick-off. Atmosphere, it'll be fantastic at Old Trafford next Saturday night. It will be. For 10-15 minutes, the crowd will always be with the team, always be with their manager. And Chelsea play midweek in Europe, so United have got a free week to prepare for it, so they should have more energy, more legs. No, it's early in the season, so it's a small thing. But they should be in a position whereby they can really go for it, be really aggressive. And I think they have to, in that first 15-20 minutes next week, go and get a goal. I'm not saying that's going to be the be-all and end-all, but they have to start quickly. They have to get a goal. They can't go 1-0 down against Chelsea, and then all of a sudden Chelsea are passing it around, the crowd goes quiet, and before you know it, you're into a sort of spiral of another game. I think they have to be really lightning quick out of the blocks next Saturday night, because it's a really important match. Losing away from home from City is never going to cost you your job, because the reality of it is a lot of teams lose here, but when you start to lose games at home, they just beat Burnley in the last minute. It is going to start to put pressure on the manager, and you're going to see more images of the owners in the box, and Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox and Jim Ratcliffe and everybody else. You're just going to start to see more of those images appear. So Manchester United have to find wins. They have to get wins in this latter part of September, early October. They cannot lose games, because if they carry on losing games, there's going to be an outcry in the next few weeks, and we don't want that. I mean, United don't want that. There's no benefit. There's no sort of plus sign today here at Old Trafford. Sorry, at the Etihad, because Manchester United have lost for a United fan. The only smile that you could possibly have is around Ricky Hatton, thinking that he's somewhere watching this game and his beloved Manchester City have won this match. Because to me today, I feel sick in my stomach from the moment this morning, late morning, when that news broke through. That is the only thing that's really sort of taken my mind today. Someone who is an unbelievable Mancunian, someone who carried Manchester all around the world to America in massive fights, lit up the city and the arenas of the city with his boxing. Someone who went in and literally fought like everything hung on it every single time. A warrior. When you talk about football players and do they care, you never doubted that about Ricky Hatton when he went into a ring. And then I've met him a number of times in my life, and sort of, you know, grounded, earthy, family man, someone who basically, you know, you'd say what a good lad. What a good lad. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, and it was our Christmas party. I have a Christmas party every year for my businesses, and Ricky turned up. He wasn't invited, he just turned up. And I remember we were having a drink with him, and you know, that's the sort of lad he was. Whether you were blue or whether you were red, you know, he cared about Manchester a lot, and he cared about his country. And today is a devastating day. It really is. When you think of the love that he had for this club and the support that he gave to this football club, he would have absolutely loved this afternoon. He'd have been out tonight in Manchester with his mates, having a beer, having a laugh. And to think that's not going to happen again, it's honestly, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
No, it's terribly sad. And Gary, I know how much the city of Manchester means to you. You genuinely are proud of this place, and I know you're saying that he felt exactly the same.
Yeah,
and red and blue doesn't really matter.
No. Today, honestly, look, I'm a United fan. I wanted United to win, but the only potential sort of smile you could give that result is the fact that Ricky would have enjoyed today. And like you say, 46 years of age is no age, and it'll take quite a bit of time, I think, for the city to get over that news, because, like you say, he was a very, very popular man. Yeah. He was someone that United fans loved, someone that City fans loved, and all Mancunians loved, and he did an awful lot for the city. He was a champion in the ring and a champion out of the ring.
Well, it's a beautiful tribute, beautiful. Elsewhere in football and the Premier League, you watched all but stoppage time of the Liverpool-Burnley game. What did you make of that? Yeah.
So I'm watching this game in the little truck that we have in the broadcast compound, and it gets to 90 minutes, and I'm thinking they're definitely going to score, but it's getting to like 3:38 or something like that, 3:40, and I'm thinking I better get up to the gantry. You know, it's a little bit sort of noisy around here, so I better get up to the gantry, and I'm walking up with someone, and I leave the little truck that we're in, and I said, I see the board go up, and it's got 5 minutes to go. And I've got absolutely no doubts that by the time I get in this lift to come up to this third floor here, and then out onto this, I've got no doubts that Liverpool will have scored. As soon as I open the lift doors, what do I hear? One of the City fans says, Liverpool have just scored. I'm like, I knew that was going to happen. Because they've got that thing at the moment, haven't they? That thing that maybe at times we used to have. City have had it. You know, teams that win leagues have it. They've got that mentality. They can not play well. They can play really well and win, and that's great, and most of the time that they would do that. But they can also, when they're going through periods of time of settling in players like Wirtz and Ekatike and other players that they've got, Kirkes, who went off after 30 minutes today, Frimpong, you know, they're settling in a new sort of wave of players into the club. They're settling in a new wave of players into the squad. And they're not at their absolute sort of purring best, but they've got something, and they won. And that's a really important thing to have. Now, obviously, you can't go on keep on winning by playing below your best and performing like they did today. But they keep getting over the line. They've demonstrated that in the first few weeks of this season, and they've carried it on after the international break. So it was a big win for Liverpool. Heartbreak for Burnley. I was at Old Trafford a few weeks ago in the last minute when obviously they conceded that penalty. They just literally lost 2 points against United and Liverpool, which would have been great points for them. But it'll give them heart maybe to go into other games, but I just knew that would happen.
Yeah, of course. It struck me, Gary. I didn't obviously watch it as closely as you did, but whenever I looked up and watched the game, Burnley weren't defending desperately, were they? I thought they seemed to be defending really, really well with poise, and they played well. So
yeah, Liverpool just weren't at the best. It was a scruffy game, wasn't it, in some ways? But you know, Burnley were defending well. And Liverpool just couldn't break them down. Liverpool are obviously the better team, so you can't deny Liverpool at the end of the game. But you always know they're going to be the better team against Burnley. But they'll be gutted tonight, Burnley. Scott Parker and the boys who played, the fans who obviously came to watch. And yeah, but that's where Liverpool are at this period in their sort of development. They can sort of get through games. You know, at the end of the game, I saw, and when I finally got up here, it was Salah and Van Dijk doing the interview, coming out and talking about not being at the best but getting over the line, because they've got two world-class players and operators there who know how to win leagues. They've done it twice at Anfield already. So there's some comfort in that dressing room where the likes of Wirtz, Nekatike or others that are settling in can just be carried a little bit by the experienced players. They've got Robertson came on, for Kirkies after half an hour. Again, that's really important to have someone to come off the bench who's got that sort of ability to be able to know what's going on and not panic. So, yeah, Liverpool are in a good place. I thought Arsenal yesterday was strong against Forest. It was a good day for them as well.
Yeah. And you watched all of that game.
I had a blitz of football yesterday. It was Arsenal, Salford, Tottenham, West Ham, and then Chelsea, Brentford. And starting with Arsenal, Madueke, Eze. When you think about Martinelli and Saka, you thought they would dominate the left and right wing of Arsenal for the next 5-10 years. And yet you're watching two players yesterday, and obviously Saka will come back in, and so will Martinelli play games as well. But Madueke's a lot better than I imagined and thought he would be, and certainly a lot better than Arsenal fans thought he would be. A couple of runs that he made for England on Wednesday night, Tuesday night, were a different level. Their runs, I thought, ooh, them runs... Iron Robin used to make those runs against me. I'm giving you players of a sort of like a level where you think, oh, I'm up against it. This is a different type of player. Sometimes you play against wingers who are dribbling at you and you know they've got a trick and you know that you're going to be in for a difficult day. And then you've got players who are like a step above, a level above. Now, I'm not saying Madueke's there yet, but he's not. But his movements and the things that he's doing are very, very good. And I'm talking it from a fullback's perspective, playing against it. And Eze looks like he's got that little bit of something. Well, he has got that something. So you look at those two now. Gyökeres, a good day for him. The problem is with Arsenal, they've got so many silky players and football players in Zubimendi and Ødegaard and Madueke, Eze, Declan Rice. And then you look at sort of Gyökeres, and he's a misfit. He's a misfit for that group of players in the sense of he's not, sort of like technically amazing. But I actually like that sort of contrast, that idea of having this battering ram who's a little bit sort of ungainly, and I think he'll beat up small teams. Whether he'll do it in the big games and score in the big games, not as sure. I think that the best defenders might handle him, and we'll see. But I think he'll beat up smaller teams for Arsenal, which that's not a bad thing. Scoring loads of goals and getting 20 goals this season, which he could do, it doesn't necessarily all have to be against the big teams. Now he'll want the odd one or two against them, but just early on, seeing him be a real threat, a real handful, and I think Arsenal need a bit of imperfection in their attack. Maybe someone that can get it into the box a little bit quicker. Well, it was a good day for Arsenal. Forest, Angie's first game, not quite at it.
No. I was just going to mention, because you did briefly, Zubimendi, who actually, he's not a big fella, is he?
No.
And yet he looks like he carries real authority in that midfield.
I actually thought he was as important to sign as Gyökeres, because I think that when I saw Arsenal last season, I actually thought there were moments where Jorginho played, where he just pops those balls through lines. And I'm not sure Declan Rice and Partey. It's interesting how Declan Rice is now being used by Mikel Arteta, but also by Thomas Tuchel, and in that advanced role, and Elliot Anderson played deeper for England, obviously, in the midweek. I actually think that's where Declan Rice should be, up in top of the game, up the pitch, not receiving it off his back foot. That's not to say he can't do it in certain matches. But Zubimendi, I thought they really needed that type of player, Arsenal, to receive the ball in there and then pop it through into Ødegaard quicker, get it forward quicker, break the lines. So not quite sort of, I wasn't expecting him to sign for volleys from outside the box or headers at the back post, which is what we got yesterday. But that's the quality of him. He's got great technical ability. He showed us something. I think that I was watching it on obviously the television, and they said that it maybe was only third headed goal in his career or something like that. But for me, Zubimendi, if he can start to just, it's not been an explosive start from him, but if he can start to grow and get better and build that sort of relationship in midfield with Rice and Ødegaard, who obviously went off yesterday, and then you can start to get Saka back and a couple of the others, and before you know it, obviously Saliba's out currently, but Mosquera's done well since he's coming. So Arsenal have got real depth. I think Martinelli and Trossard came on sort of like really late on, and that's like almost like fifth and sixth wingers now. It's amazing where Arsenal are at with the wide players and their creative ability. So yeah, they just need to be a little bit more, just take a bit more risk. I think Arsenal, even yesterday, just a bit more risk. Just lift it by 5% in terms of your expression and your risk, because you've got the players to do it.
Well, that's what you said at Anfield the other week, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just lift it. I mean, win games, keep clean sheets, be pragmatic, be great at set pieces, but just have that little bit more freedom that little bit more something that might just be the spark and that edge that gets you over the line.
So we'll finish on Chelsea in just a second because you saw them yesterday as well. But since you're on Arsenal, and based on what you've seen here and what you saw yesterday, just preview in that context Arsenal Man City next week.
If I'm looking at that from an Arsenal perspective, I'm thinking this is a game I've got to win. Yeah, I think it's a game I've got to win. I think Arsenal are a better team currently and a more all-round team than this Manchester City team. But they're going to have problems in the game. You know, there's no doubt that Manchester City are going to cause them problems because they've got too many good players. They've got to handle Haaland. You've got to handle Foden and Bernardo Silva and Doku, who have got real individual ability to be able to create moments. So there's, Arsenal are going to have to play really well in this game next week. But balancing that defensive sort of pragmatic solidity that they have, and we know they can, deploy in big matches, and then having that ability to think we've got to win this match and that mentality of winning the match. And that starts from the manager with his team selection. It starts then with the players when they get on the pitch with that sort of element of just going for it in moments where they can and not holding back, and having that real expression and that sort of, that's something different that they need to win big matches. And they've been good in big matches, this Arsenal team. So, I think it's a game that Arsenal have to win. I think if Pep got, it's a tougher game for City than it is for Arsenal. But for City, if you really want to let people know that you're back in the title race and you really want to shake it up, then go and win. Go and win at the Emirates next Sunday, because that will sort of shake things up and rock things a little bit.
Should be a fabulous game. Quickly, Chelsea, what do you think?
Well, it was a great moment to score late on, and you think, there you go, what a win. Great away wins when you score late on. And then that little bit of concentration, the old long throw. The long throws come back. Corners have always been there, but the application in detail to corners seems different or more than ever before. Throw-ins are coming back in at every single level of the game. Long throw-ins, we're seeing them at all types. We're seeing kickoffs going out and being booted into the far corner. The game has changed. I think managers, I'm not saying we're going back to the 1980s where there's long ball, because there's a lot of technical players, but there is an element of realising that getting that ball into the box with bodies in there is going to create massive issues. And just Brentford have been fantastic, haven't they? Mainly under Thomas Frank over the last few years. They've been one of the best at set pieces. But, to get that late equaliser was a brilliant moment for Brentford and would have sent them home happy. And I was sort of half drifting off by this point. I was 4 games in. And it woke me up, and I wasn't expecting them to score. But, I just caught that before I went to sleep, hoping that the Manchester derby would be a better game for me, but it hasn't been.
Hey-ho.
Thank you.
Them's the breaks.
Thanks,
Gary.
Peter.
Cheers.
Thank you.